What is up, guys? It's your boy, aka Benny P, back with another Bedrock Minecraft video. Today we're going to be talking about how villagers detect beds in 1.11. So some interesting mechanics here that you may or may not know. So hopefully this helps somebody out. So if you like this, leave a like, leave a comment, let me know what you guys think about it. So if we look below us, what we have right now, we got 6 chunks marked out with glass borders, but really this doesn't have really anything to do with chunks. It's more to do with the distance the bed is away from the actual villager. But we can use chunks to our advantage here because from what I've seen, 16 is kind of a magic number with regards to a villager. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So this guy is on the edge of a chunk border, and if you count 16 blocks out, that will be this chunk border here. So 16 blocks away, he should be able to detect this bed wherever I place it. So if you see here, I'll place a bed right there. It takes about 6 seconds for it to show. That one linked up. Now I'll place one on the edge here too. And you'll see this one should link up as well. So it's almost like anything that's within that 16, any part of the bed that's within that 16 range. So we can also test it this way. Well, let me show you what happens when you go one past where I just placed it. So if I place it right here, no particles, doesn't link. This guy doesn't take the bed. He doesn't care. Get rid of that. You don't see the bad particles either, so he's not linking to that bed that's further than 16 away. So you can see this is our chunk border here, so let's place a bed where it's one in. 6 seconds later, we get the particles. Let's place a bed where it's one outside of the range. No particles. Okay, so cool story. So 16 blocks is kind of the detection range, and I don't know if it matters like if their head is covered or not. So I know in Java, if you block out this whole place around their head and they have no blocks where they could move, then it'll block the detection altogether. But I haven't seen that work here in Bedrock, so I'm thinking the same thing's going to happen here. If we place a bed there, yep, particles. And then if we place it one where it's not in that chunk at all, no particles. One more thing I'm going to try real quick just to make sure that this is working the way I think it is. Let's just block in all of this stuff here. Let's put him in a perfect cube where there would be no way he could ever move. Because they said in Java it has something to do with movement. So we'll give this a try real quick. I think we're going to get the same results here in Bedrock, but I think we're going to get different results in Bedrock than they do in Java. He'll still be able to detect this bed. Yep. And then this one's not detectable because it's outside the range. Yep. So that's how this works. So again, he's one block outside of that chunk border. And anything we place that's overlapping this chunk, any of these beds, if I place a bed right here, it's not in the chunk border. If I place a bed this way, maybe. Yep. Let's try it on the edge of this chunk right here. So if I place a bed right here, yep. If I place a bed here, doesn't link. So this chunk, if the bed is anywhere inside of this chunk, it will link to him. So that's interesting. That's an interesting mechanic there. But it doesn't stop there. So we're going to put a villager all the way over here in this corner of the chunk over here in this chunk. So actually, is that on the edge of the chunk border? I may want to move this guy one more out to be the same way that this guy is, because he's straddling this chunk border. He's on the right side of this chunk border. So let's move this container out one more here. So just move these glass blocks over, and then we will set our guy right here. So he'll be in this chunk, and he'll be able to attack 16 blocks away from him. So if we throw a villager in here, and we place a bed down, let's see, there's the chunk border right there. If we place a bed down inside this chunk border, but wait, we didn't see green particles above his head. But watch when I break this bed. So we saw the bad particles on this guy. So even though that bed was further than 16 blocks away, it could still connect to that villager. And I think this works vice versa as well. If we set a block in here, nope, that didn't link to that guy. But if we break it here, we see the bad particles on that guy. So that's interesting. So what happens if we put it where it's not in either of their detection ranges? So if I place, here's the edge of this border right here. If I place one right here, what happens? No particles, didn't link to either. So this is interesting, guys. So apparently this 16 blocks isn't a valid village. The village isn't valid here because there's no villagers in the 16 blocks. But anytime you place a bed in a 16 block range from a villager, it becomes a village. And the village is like one big thing. It doesn't really care about chunks or blocks or how far it is away. I believe there's just these two guys are registered to a village. And it doesn't matter how far away they are from each other, they're registered to a village. So when I place a bed, it could either link to that guy or that guy. You can see it's linking to that guy. Now let's see, if we place one over here by this guy, it should link to him now. Maybe. See, now we always have it backwards where it doesn't want to link to that guy. So now if we place one over here, it's still going to link to the other guy. So the only way we can fix this, I think, is if I place a bed there, it'll link to that guy. And if I place a bed there, it'll link to that guy. And then I can break this bed. And I can place it over here next to this guy. Should link there now. Yep. And then I can break this bed. And I should be able to link it over here now. Yep. So that bed's linked to that villager, that bed's linked to that villager. So, you can switch these around. You got to be very careful bringing villagers in or placing beds in places where villagers already are, because anywhere inside this 16 range, this chunk, this chunk, this chunk, this chunk, doesn't matter. So to prove that, we'll go ahead and block out this way some to our next border chunk. So it looks like the chunk's right there. So let's go ahead and create this chunk real quick. So there's that chunk. So if we break this bed, it'll unlink from that guy. But if we place it over here on the end of this chunk, it'll link again. And if we go 2 blocks outside of that chunk, doesn't link. So that proves anywhere in a square radius of 16 blocks. So let's go this way too. Let's test it this way. So let's be thorough here. So let's go to the chunk border. So this is going to be interesting too, because he's further in this chunk than he is in that chunk. So I'm wondering how that's going to work. Did I miss the chunk border? Yeah, it's right here. So there's a chunk. There's a chunk. So this is our next chunk over here. So this is still within 16 blocks here. This is still within 16 blocks. So what's going to be interesting here is, does that extend one more block because he's closer this way, or is it chunk based? So if we place a bed right here, should link. Yep. If we place a bed on the edge, it should link. Yep. If we place a bed once, it still links. One more, doesn't link. So it's not chunk based, because if it was chunk based, if I put it right here, it wouldn't link, but it's still linking. So it's based on the center of where this guy is. It's probably a sphere here, but we're just testing on the Z axis here. So the X and Z axis, excuse me. So basically, 16 blocks in any direction from this point is where he can detect the bed. So that's an interesting mechanic. And again, if that bed wasn't placed over there and I placed a bed here, it could link to that villager still. It wouldn't automatically link to this guy, but since we already have a bed linked over there, that's fine. So how do we use this in the future? So a couple of things to do is, if you have like a 16 area where no villagers are, let's say your villager breeder's over here, and those guys are connected to beds over here or whatever, and you have 2 beds here and you have 2 villagers that you bred and you send them all the way over here, and there's no villagers here, then you already have a bed here, then you break the bed over there, then they will link to this bed. So there may be some other mechanics you guys are a lot smarter than I am, so this is just basically how the mechanic works. So anywhere within 16 blocks of this center point is now a village, and over there is a village, and these are both the same village. So it doesn't matter. These villagers can all link to a bed. If I placed another villager in this villager block over here, it could still link to a bed over there if I place it over there. So we can test that real quick. We can go ahead and put another villager over here. So now we're going to extend this village by 1 villager. Put 1 here. Put 1 there. Drop a villager in. So now we're going to expect that if we put another bed over here, it will link to that villager all the way over there. And even if we put a bed right here, this far away from that villager, boom, it linked to that villager all the way over there. And you can see they're even out of render distance. It doesn't even render the beds or the villagers, doesn't matter. It'll still link to that villager over there. Yep. But if we put it in this chunk where no villages are, there are no villagers within 16 blocks of this chunk, it won't match up to that villager. So these are some pretty interesting mechanics here, and I just wanted to show you guys how this stuff works. So I didn't know about this, the way this detection works within 16 blocks of a villager, and it seems like to me that it's a big registry, like it's a giant registry of village. It's one giant village, and there's a bunch of villagers in the registry, and when you place a bed, it decides, okay, it doesn't matter where the bed is it 16 blocks away from a villager is what matters. It doesn't matter what chunk it's in, it doesn't matter what far away it is away from another village. It's all based on, is that bed a part of a valid village, which is 16 blocks away from a villager. So very interesting mechanics here, guys. Hopefully you guys can use this stuff to your advantage. If you come up with something smart, link me your videos. Let me know if you guys figure out ways to exploit this or use this correctly with breeders or iron farms or anything cool. If you guys are able to use this, please let me know. Drop me a like, leave me a comment. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.